Every time an unhinged madman pops off a few school children in the US, ardent defenders of the Second Amendment usually rattle off the line, "If we ban guns, should we ban cars too because they kill more people than guns do?" And the answer is, hell yeah! 1.25 million people die a year from car crashes. That's nearly the entire population of Maine every single year, and the population of Pennsylvania since 2010. If we include car accident related injuries and disabilities, this brings our total up to 50 million people per year, or the entire population of South Korea receiving whiplash one day. Over a 10-year period, that's anywhere between 200 million and 500 million people injured, or give or take the entire US population. Not only do cars directly kill people, they indirectly kill people too. A fifth of all greenhouse gas emissions in Europe come from cars, and the effect on the local environment is even worse. 30 UK cities are over the limit of what is considered safe air to breathe, and a further 17 are just at the limit, leading to 1 in 19 deaths being caused by pollution. In Barcelona, 3,500 people die each year because of bad air. Car exhaust emissions certainly play a role in that. You could just say we can switch to electric or self-driving vehicles, which don't have emissions and are safer than human drivers, but that doesn't solve any of the other problems that cars can cause in cities. For example, space. Here is a random street in LA. This is how much space the cars get, and here's how much space you get. Seems ridiculous, right? Now imagine there's one person standing where the cars are. All of this space has been made inaccessible to you for these few people. Another example. This is Milton Keynes in the UK. This city was built in the 1950s for the sole purpose of accommodating cars. Here's how much space the cars get. Why are we putting up with this? 14% of all space in cities is taken up by car parks alone. No wonder we have a housing crisis. You could put like 2 blocks of flat on that space. Car culture has also resulted in increased class and racial segregation. In the early days of automobiles in the US, city planners would build low bridges around poorer communities who were predominantly African American because these communities could not afford cars. Instead, they were forced to take the bus, which could not fit under these bridges and therefore kept them out of areas with higher paying jobs and better schools. You might think this is all in the past, but the bridges are all still there. Overall, cars are dangerous, smelly, loud, take up too much space, are racist, and also I just don't like them. Let's ban them from our cities. Now, that's quite a radical proposal, so to be fair, we'll take a look at some of the objections people might have. Shall we? Objection number 1. Removing cars would be too unpopular. Here's Times Square in 2008, and here it is now. Look at all those unhappy shoppers. This is Jubilee Gardens in the 1960s, and this is it today. That poor woman seems to be crying in despair because she came to see cars, and all there is now is a beautiful garden instead. This is a highway in Seoul. Then they demolished it to build this horrific garden that anyone can use, which is absolutely terrible, I'm sure you'll agree. So this is what Orleans in France used to look like, and it now looks like this. This is what we in the Yimby community call a dub. So what does this show us? Everywhere cars have been banned, nobody has ever wanted them to come back. Believe me, I have checked. Objection number 2. If we restrict where cars can go, the places where cars can go will become crowded and full of traffic all of the time. Well, actually, the opposite is true. Studies show the more roads we build, the more people drive and congestion actually increases. Every time San Francisco adds another lane to their highway, commute time along it increases by 1 minute on average. It doesn't take a genius to figure out if we decrease the number of roads you can drive on, the less people will drive. In New York City, in a trial run of banning cars on some of the streets, buses actually had to slow down in order to meet schedules because the streets were so deserted of cars. Objection number 3. How will people get around without access to cars? Objection number 4. Public transport is not as good as owning your own car. Now, there are many reasons why somebody might feel better driving than taking the bus or the subway. One is speed and convenience. Why wait for a bus that goes an indirect route, stopping periodically, when you can just drive straight to where you want to go? For one, increased bus usage means that more frequent buses and increased routes to meet demand, so there's no issue there. Existing infrastructure will adapt. Secondly, if everyone gets into one bus, there will be virtually no traffic and you'll just breeze around the city. You can also bypass the road entirely and use a bike lane. Some might claim public transport is dirty and helps pass along diseases like the recent coronavirus. While research shows people who use public transport are more at risk of catching respiratory illness, the same research also shows that areas with more frequent bus and subway services have lower rates of infection because journeys are faster, more direct and less crowded. Once again, removing cars will increase the frequency and size of public transport services, alleviating this problem. Another reason is the perceived cost. Buying a bus ticket twice a day every single day might seem like a lot. However, not when you look at the bigger picture. Owning a car in the UK costs on average £388 a month due to petrol, repairs, MOT costs and insurance premiums. And that doesn't even include parking costs. All the while you can't travel while drunk or high, you're responsible for any accidents that happen behind the wheel, and you have to sit in traffic jams. Compare this to public transport users. In London, which has the highest public transportation cost in Europe, the average commuter only spends £150 per month on transport, much lower than the average driver, and on nights out they don't have to nominate some poor sod to be the designated driver. Objection number 5. Won't it hurt the economy? Somehow. This is a resounding no. For starters, the 4.5 million dead people that cars cause per year through accidents and air pollution don't contribute to any business other than the undertakers. When Barcelona banned cars on through roads in 2013, businesses on these roads reported higher returns and receipts. Passers-by walked slower, enjoyed their time outside more, browsed in more shops, and bought more things. The value of these businesses also increased between 10 and 30% simply by the fact people were walking near to them rather than driving past. Large open spaces also allow for pop-up stands to do business too. Food trucks, ice cream vans, street vendors, performing artists, merchandise stalls. That's got to be good for the economy. Taxi drivers out of work? We're going to be needing a lot more bus, tram and subway drivers anyway, that's for sure. And construction workers to convert the streets from road into public spaces. Car companies? All of them also make buses. Make no mistake, there are plenty of business opportunities to be made from people-only streets, and the effect of pedestrianisation has on businesses are pretty good too. Clearly, the evidence and arguments are in favour of removing cars from our cities. But how would you go about doing that? The answer is simple. We must do everything in our power to make life a living hell for motorists. I hope you have a spare kidney because it's going to cost you £12 to drive your car inside the city limits every single day. Also, speed limits are capped at 10 km per hour for personal vehicles. Have fun driving at a snail's pace, you fat moron. Want to park your car at a car park? Sorry, there's a price and a 50% sales tax. On street parking? Doesn't exist. We're also adding a ton of bikes and bus lanes, meaning car users are now second-class citizens on the road. Public transport is now free and has a budget the size of the frigging moon. We're going to install a national belief that cycling is patriotic, and we're also going to have rentable electric golf cars to get around the town. When more and more people ditch driving and make the move to public transport, we'll finally ban all cars from our cities and suburbs. Of course, people with disabilities will still be allowed to drive and park cars in the cities, as is the case in all places that have currently banned cars. For those in rural areas, go ahead and keep driving your cars, but be warned that we're also coming after motorways. Yes, I also want to touch briefly on getting rid of motorways, autobahns and highways too. Rail travel is less damaging for the environment, looks way nicer, is probably cheaper than paving over vast swathes of countryside with asphalt, lets you enjoy the stunning scenery, lets you read, work and talk face to face on the way, has no traffic jams and barely any noise or air pollution. In summary, cars are disgusting, and if you live in a city, you are morally obliged to use public transport whenever possible. When we shift our municipal psyche away from a culture of cars towards pedestrians and community transport, cities will start to become more enjoyable places to live and work instead of just a soulless hub of tarmac. Removing obstacles to economic growth, social spaces, class mobility and gun health can't ever be a bad thing. Of course, getting rid of cars won't turn cities into utopias overnight, but it's a good start.